Hi, my name is Stephen for SteadyMaker. In this video, we're going to talk a little about the different modes that you will find with your stabilizer. Now, what do I mean by modes? This means when you press the silver button on the front of the handle a certain number of times, this will change the way you can operate your stabilizer. In our other stabilizer, the SMG Extreme, we have 3 modes. In the Mini Tank, we have 5 modes and what we call a freeze mode. It's a little more complicated because we also have some modes that will affect only the remote control, and we have some modes that only affect the joystick control. The joystick is at the back of the handle and the remote can be used with the top handlebar attachment in inverted mode. Let's go through the modes that you have on your stabilizer. If you followed the last couple of videos, you've unboxed, checked your components, you have now constructed your stabilizer so that it's ready for use. You have pre-balanced your camera in the stabilizer and you've given it a quick test. It seems like it's straight and level and it's good for operation. So I'm going to switch on the stabilizer. Again, if you notice that it drifts or if it settles in a strange position, it's very easy to fix that. This is what we call freeze mode. You hold your camera straight and level for 3 seconds and this will fix the motors in that position. Very useful for when you want to set your stabilizer in a strange angle during a shoot, or if you just want to reset any drift you have on the horizon or in any of the axes. So I can see that it's slightly off at the moment in the roll axis, so I'm going to straighten up a little and then just hold it for 3 seconds and then it resets the motor in that position. Your default, this means the mode that you have when you switch your stabilizer on, is locked in one axis. So right now, if I twist the handle to the left and to the right, this is the yaw axis. In other words, it turns the camera to the left and right. You'll see that it follows in the yaw. So it attempts to point the camera where I'm twisting the handle. So if I twist it to the right, the yaw motor then turns the camera to the right. If I twist the handle to the left, the yaw motor twists the camera to the left. So it's attempting to follow where I am twisting and where I'm pointing the camera. Now the pitch axis, you will notice, is locked. This means that the camera is straight and level wherever I pitch the camera. So if I tilt the camera forward, you'll notice that the camera remains straight and level. If I tilt the stabilizer back, you'll notice the camera is still straight and level. So now it is locked in the pitch axis, but it follows in the yaw axis. The roll is obviously straight and level, but you can also control the roll. We'll talk about that a little later. At the moment, it's straight and level in the roll, and it's straight and level in the pitch, but the yaw is following. This is the default mode. This is the mode that you get when you switch your stabilizer on, but this is also when you press the silver button once, you'll find this mode. You also have follow mode. This is 2 presses of the silver button at the front. If I press that quickly twice, you'll hear a series of tones. Okay, now it is in what we call follow mode. Now you've seen that it will follow in the yaw. This time it also follows in the pitch. So if I pick the stabilizer up and I tilt the stabilizer forward, you'll see that it attempts to match the pitch by tilting the camera down. So now it's trying to follow where I'm tilting the stabilizer in the pitch axis. If I tilt backwards, you'll see that it pitches the camera upwards to match where I'm tilting the stabilizer. So now it's attempting to follow where I'm pointing the stabilizer in the pitch and in the yaw. So mode 1, it locks the pitch straight and level. Mode 2, we call follow mode. This means it follows in the pitch and the yaw. This is very useful for if you want the stabilizer to be more point of view. In other words, you want it to follow where you're pointing the stabilizer. If you're using mode 1, the default mode, usually it's good for very high or very low angles when you want to keep the stabilizer straight and level no matter where you're pitching your stabilizer. But this is the follow mode. So now it's following everywhere I go with the stabilizer. It's looking up, looking down. This is very good for point of view. So the first two modes, the one press and two presses, the default mode and the follow mode, these are for the rear joystick only. There is 3, 4 and 5 presses. This is for your remote operation. I'm not going to set up the handlebars with the remote right now, that's in another video, but I will power on my remote. This is with the yellow button on the remote here, and you'll see a green light, that means the remote is powered up. Now you can use the remote control for your stabilizer control. Instead of the rear joystick, you can now use the remote. To lock the rear joystick and to start using the remote, now you need to press it 3, 4 or 5 times. If I press it 3 times, now this is default for the remote control. Remember, 1 press is default for the rear joystick, 3 presses is default for the remote control. Now this will enable the remote control to be used. So if I slide with my thumb to the left and to the right, now it is pitching the remote. So now the remote controller is used to control my stabilizer instead of the rear joystick. Same kind of operation now, I just use my thumb to knock it to the left and to the right and up and down. Now it's still following in the yaw, but it's still straight and level in the pitch. This is just like 1 press for the joystick mode. So 3 presses enables the remote default mode. Now, if I press 4 times, it's the equivalent of pressing 2 times on joystick mode. Now if I press 4 times, now the remote controller is used instead of the joystick. It still controls the pitch and the yaw of your stabilizer. However, when I pick the stabilizer up and I use it, it's now in follow mode. If you remember, follow mode means that it attempts to follow where you're pitching and you're yawing with your stabilizer. So if I pick it up and I yaw to the left and to the right, it attempts to follow. And if I pitch down, it tilts the camera down. If I pitch up, it tilts the camera up. So this is what's called follow mode. Now when I use the stabilizer, it's following. Now, because I'm in remote control operation, I cannot use the rear joystick. If I attempt to use the rear joystick, it does not control the motors. So this is just for remote control operation. So this is 4 presses, follow mode for the remote control. 5 presses locks the camera straight and level in all axes. In other words, in the roll, the pitch, and the yaw. This is useful if you want the camera to maintain a straight and level perspective in all axes, but you still want to retain control with the remote controller. So press it 5 times. Now it will be locked in the pitch, the yaw, and the roll axis. So now I retain control with my remote joystick. However, when I operate the stabilizer, it's locked in all axes. If I attempt to yaw left and right, there is no following. If I pitch down and upwards, there is no following in the pitch axis. So it's maintaining a straight and level perspective for the camera in all axes. This means it doesn't matter what I do with the stabilizer, the camera will always remain straight and level. Now there's one more mode of operation to remember for both the remote and the rear joystick, and this is a switching mode. This means it will switch the yaw, which is the left and right panning of the camera, for a roll control. This means that instead of using the joystick to turn the camera left and turn the camera right when I want to, it will now switch it for rolling the camera to the left and right. This is good for some quite complex camera moves or some surreal shots. You can, for example, change the horizon. You can make the horizon drift to the left and right as you're moving forward with the stabilizer. In order to do this, I need to hold the silver button down for 3 or 4 seconds, and you'll hear a very quick tone. This has now switched the yaw for the roll axis on your controller. Now, because I'm in remote control mode right now, if I hold it down for 4 seconds, it will switch for the remote controller. if I am using it in joystick control mode, which is 1 or 2 presses, if I hold it down, then it will switch the yaw left and right for a roll left and right with the joystick. So you can choose for the remote modes or for the joystick modes in order to swap the yaw for the roll. So now if I hold the silver button down for 4 seconds, you'll hear a little tone. Now it has switched the left and right on the joystick for a roll to the left and a roll to the right. So you notice now the joystick rolls the camera to the left and right. And you can see that we can use it with some quite complicated movements while you're operating your stabilizer. So if you wanted some really interesting, complicated or surreal movements, you can now swap the yaw for the roll. So let's summarize the modes for you when you operate your stabilizer. It's a little complicated at first, but just play with the different modes, see what you can do with the camera and the stabilizer when you use these modes, find out which ones suit you the best, and you'll find a combination that works. You'll soon get used to switching between the remote operation and the joystick operation and locking it in different axes. So remember, one press of the silver button and you're in joystick mode. This is enabling you to control where it follows in the yaw, but it's locked in the pitch. This is the default mode when you switch your stabilizer on. This means that the joystick at the back is active, but not the remote controller. And it is following in the yaw axis, but it is locked in the pitch. It's also locked in the roll, by the way, so you cannot use the roll axis with the first mode. So I'll just show you again. Follows in the yaw, and it's locked in the pitch, and it's locked in the roll as well. It maintains a straight and level horizon. If you use the joystick at the back, you can see that you can control the right and left, the yaw, and you can control the pitch up and down, but you cannot control the roll axis. If you press it twice, this is what we call follow mode with the joystick. So now it will follow your pitch and it will follow your yaw. 3 presses of the silver button takes you to the default mode with your remote. So now I cannot use the rear joystick. If I try and move the rear joystick, nothing happens. However, if I use the remote joystick, now it controls the stabilizer. Same as default mode, same as one press. This now follows in the yaw, but it's locked in the pitch, and the joystick controls the pitch and the yaw of your stabilizer, but not the rear joystick. If I press it 4 times, this is now the remote follow mode and not the joystick follow mode. Again, the rear joystick does not operate the stabilizer, and this joystick now controls the pitch and the yaw. And if I pick up the stabilizer and if I pitch to the left and right, if I pitch up and down, and if I yaw to the left and right, it follows where I am trying to point the stabilizer. So this is why we call it follow mode. A special one for the remote joystick is 5 presses. This now locks the camera in all axes. So the roll, the yaw, and the pitch is now locked straight and level. No matter where I point the stabilizer, it will maintain the camera straight and level operation. So now the encoded motors are just keeping the camera straight and level and in a forward position. However, I can still use the remote to control the pitch and the yaw of my camera. Remember, if I hold for 4 seconds, then it will swap the yaw left and right for a roll left and right. So I hold for 4 seconds. Now it has switched to a roll left and right control instead of a yaw left and right control. And I can still pitch up and down. But when I hold the stabilizer, it's locked in all axes. Again, don't forget, in any axis that you use, in any mode that you use, you can freeze your camera in any particular position. Like I said, if you want to maintain a straight and level, if you want to return it to straight and level, you just hold it and then the motors will lock it in that position, and I can do that with any angle I choose during shooting. If I want to maintain this level, now it is locked in this particular angle, and this goes with all of the different modes. Now it's locked in all 3 axes because of the mode that I've chosen, and once I want to return it to straight and level, I just hold it in the position that I think is close enough to straight and level, and then the motors will freeze it back in that position. Alternatively, you can just switch the stabilizer off and then power it back up, and it will be back straight and level in mode 1, which is the default mode. Now the rear joystick is again the controller for your stabilizer. So I hope that's given you a brief overview with the different modes. It sounds a little complicated at first. It becomes very simple when you start to use them, and I hope you enjoy making the most out of those different modes. In the next video, we're going to look at the inverted mode with the handlebars and your remote.